Another couple of chapters we hope to get through today of this absolute monstrosity. And so with me today again is Eel Reerg. How you going, Eel?
I'm going good. How are you, Cornville?
Yeah, doing good, mate. Doing real good. Always always fun to hang out with everyone, especially going through this. I really enjoyed last week's one, and while we both already know the story, it's amazing every time you go through it, you pick up more disaster. So it's good stuff.
I think disaster is an appropriate word. Yeah.
um, yeah, so we'll get into it pretty soon. So any kind of thoughts from you on what we've already gone over, like anything that kind of stood out on that kind of reread for you?
Just a terrible setup. I mean, I can't imagine starting a book or any story worse than the first two chapters, especially the one and two-thirds page chapter two, the nothing chapter that was chapter two.
Hmm.
Just awful. What are your thoughts so far?
Look, much the same. And but what's really stood out to me? I mean, the nothingness is a big thing, and what's really stood out to me because, as I said last week, like I've gone through and changed all of the Aarons to Lawns and all of I now went through and changed all of the Johnsons to Armstrongs because, as I said, this
Same.
story is Lorne Armstrong. Like this is not Aaron Johnson. But while I was doing that, and because when we were going through it last week, just the terrible sentence structure, like, at times where you could actually die if you read it in the way that he intended to read with no punctuation. And I was tempted because I am a little bit OCD when it comes to grammar, so I was tempted to fix that up because it was really bothering me. But I thought, no, this is the full Lawn experience. It would be wrong of me to fix this up for him. So that,
Yeah, you'd be the first person to edit it, despite the
yeah,
fact that there were three
three
editors on
three
this book.
editors. And I assumed that editing consisted of, can you edit this for me? Yeah, sure, Lorne. Pick it up. They like just wait a couple of hours to make it seem legit and go, yeah, look, mate, looks great. You've done a great job. He's like, oh, thanks.
Yeah, yeah, I believe it.
All right, so let's say g'day to everyone, and then we'll crack into it, hey? So g'day, Cornville Councillor, and ma'am, yes, ma'am, Mandy, yes, Unreal SVT, that's a new name. Hello to you, sir or ma'am. Turtlehead 2, Consanton, goes to Tony Farmer, great to see you, buddy. Laura, Stephen A. Um, Currently deleting your archives. And look, that is good because that is another authentic Lawn thing where he tells people to delete their archives, then says more incriminating stuff. So just be aware you'll have to delete them twice if you are deleting them now. G'day Becca. G'day Mootang. Evil Little McNuggets, high pressures. Sprinkle Cake. G'day Sprinkle Cake. Rachel D. Who else we got here? Dr. Cassandra, g'day mate. Eel Reerg, Winnie's boyfriend slash husband. Eel Reerg's Chicago accent. Chatchabate Billy. G'day, g'day mate. Smokey the cat. Watch out for Ruse. Pussy Destroyer, Heisenberg White. G'day Heisenberg. Vast Ravioli. G'day Vast, or Vasty as it seems like you're going by now. The Time Machine. Who else we got? Javon, Page Master, Mootang is anxious for this reading. Egbert, Asbury Brad, and mate, I will check out your email when I get there. Thank you very much. I always look forward to your emails. It's jumped all over the place for me. Thanks very much, YouTube. Some jealous basement dweller. Jason Spears, Witchert, I drive truck for COD, Cookie Whoopie Pie, Philip Waller, the guy. G'day to everyone. I'm sorry if I missed you, but it did jump around everywhere, so shout at me if you want me to shout you out. Always happy to do that. Vegan Munster, g'day. Now, before we kick into it, I just wanted to, because I've been listening to a lot of lawn calls lately, like, just for something completely different in my life. And,
Yeah.
he always goes on about, hey, I'm not fat, and I'm not obese and all this kind of stuff. I'm 5'3" and 190 pounds. I'm not obese. And it has got to the point where it's bothered me so much that I need to know. So I did the BMI calculator,
Oh my
and
God.
and Lorne, survey says you are obese. So there you go, motherfucker. Don't tell me you're
Wow.
not obese
Great
again.
work.
It's not.
Don't ever tell Cornville Three-Way he doesn't do his research. Okay? He got into the weeds on this one.
Now that does represent the most research I've done for anything on my channel. So I feel like a bit of a lie down after that one.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, he's
And
got the. He's very close to severely obese. So a few more pounds, a few more whoppers, Lauren, and you'll be one of the best of the best.
look, and to be fair, he's the thing he quotes all the time, 5'3" and 190. That's from old calls, and having seen some of the footage from the latest 10-mile yard sale, he definitely is fatter. So I dare say he's in that severely obese now. Like I'd love a recent. If anyone is currently talking to Lorne, if you could get his current weight, that would be amazing. Because I guarantee, because he's got a much bigger gut than like the earlier videos we've seen of him where he's, quoting the 190 pounds. So I'm sure it's gone up.
Yeah, me too.
Laura says, Lorne's going to find me now and yell at me down the phone. I welcome that, Lorne. I'm always happy to pick up the phone to love to have a chat, mate. And yes, and I just saw that in comments coming up. Constantin says Patrick just posted Lorne's poem to the scammer. I need to see that. That's basically what I'll be doing between. I know Lorne Identity is streaming later, so what I'll be doing between our stream and Lorne Identity stream is checking out that poem in full.
Oh God, it's a masterpiece if I recall correctly.
And Smokey the Cat wants to know what their BMI is. Their corpse body weight is 4 pounds. So you'll need to let me know how long you are, I guess, Smokey the Cat, for us to figure that out. And g'day, Honest and Raider of the Lost Chord, and any Sad Face 09, anyone that came in there where I was banging on and on. But anyway, I've talked enough. Let's do this, eh? All right. So, Chapter 3. And I don't feel like we really need to do a recap because nothing really happened. But basically, he's gone and he's signed up for the army. And I have they've done basic training, haven't they?
Yes, they've gone through basic training, and it's important to note. It's chapter 3. We're like 12 pages into this, or like 8 pages into this, and the character has already achieved his goal, just to join the army.
Yep.
So there's nothing left for him to do the rest of the book.
Amazing.
Great place to have your character after the first 2 chapters. Great.
So rest easy. All right, here we go. Chapter 3. Lorne looked down at his watch as he stood beside his fellow soldiers, dressed in his BDUs with his backpack securely fastened around him. 4:30 a.m. Iraq time. This was it, he thought to himself. This is the moment I've waited so long for and trained so hard for. He could feel his anxiety grow when he fell in behind his fellow soldiers to step aboard the plane that was to carry his unit of 51 soldiers into Iraq. Now, I will just say that is one of the rare times he actually uses the term anxiety correctly, because you would be anxious going into war, essentially. Usually anxiety is used by him for basically
Excited.
when he's excited. Yeah, when he's excited. So he's actually used it correctly. So well
Do you
done.
think he intended to use it correctly here, or do you think he meant excited?
So, well, once again, maybe I have given him too much credit. Maybe he is just saying that his character is excited. He cannot wait to get there. but inadvertently, he has used it correctly. So, half points for Lorne. His unit leader, Staff Sergeant Buchanan, was the last man to step aboard the plane before they closed the door and headed for the runway. Lorne closed his eyes when he felt the airplane picking up speed. He could feel the bumps from the runway easily through the soles. Motherfucker. And he has
Souls.
spelt soles as Souls. So he's
So his boots are anthropomorphized, I guess. They have sentience in this universe. I wonder if they're anxious too. I'd be more anxious as a boot to go over to Iraq.
His boots looked up and said, "I'm anxious too, Lorne." He said, "Don't worry, precious." Okay, he could feel the bumps from his runway easily through the soles of his combat boots on the bottom of his feet. Then he felt his body move at an uneven angle as the nose of the plane began to lift off the ground and speed into the air. He said a silent prayer for himself, his family, and his fellow soldiers.
Wait, Cornville, I have to stop you real quick.
Yeah, mate, go for it. Please do.
Because Anton just left a comment. Maybe he'll get stationed in Italy and meet the mayor.
I've got a bone to pick with you, man.
Hey, you owe me $7K.
So yeah, and also, why so much information about exactly how this plane is taking off? Like, once again, and I'll probably say this another 20 times before we finish this, if you were going to have such a short book, don't go into so much detail about useless shit. Like, the
Or
uneven
have
angle.
have him be a mechanic of the plane. So he's like, he has extra nerves because, like, shit, I put this thing together. I got this thing prepared. I'm nervous about the takeoff. It's just nothing. He's just, the plane is taking off. Whatever.
Plane is taking off, but, you know, at an uneven angle, and the nose of the plane begins to lift off the ground. Like, just say it's taking off. Like, you don't have... You need, if you're doing 12 chapters, you need word economy, buddy. Anyway, he opened his eyes to find his unit leader, Sergeant Buchanan, looking at him. He gave him a smile, and that wasn't a stutter by me. He has literally written S Sergeant.
The SS Sergeant.
The SS Sergeant. So we got like Nazis now. I don't know what's going on. He gave a smile as his leader gave him a thumbs up for reassurance. Everyone's so friendly in the army. It sounds lovely.
You would think like a bunch of 19-year-old guys would be assholes to each other. When I was in college, we weren't like giving thumbs up and, hey, get up, sleepy bones. We were like, hey, you fucking dickhead, wake up.
Yeah.
That's the most unrealistic part of this book.
That's right. I mean, look, I've never been in the army, but I have to think that movies that depict, what happens in the army, and especially, like some of the ones that they've gone to a lot of lengths to kind of get what that experience is like. I don't see, sergeants giving their guys a thumbs up and you'll be okay. It seems a lot more regimented that way. And but anyway, I digress. He fidgeted with the excess strap from his backpack belt while a million things ran through his mind. And we don't get to find out what any of those things are. The flight to Iraq seemed to take forever. He wasn't sure he was prepared for what he was going to see when he got off the plane, but knew there was nothing he could do about it now. Lorne felt his stomach suddenly turn very warm when he felt the plane begin to descend.
Wait. I have a question. Is he flying from the United States to Iraq on a military plane? Is that what's happening here?
I believe so. Yes.
It's not. They fly like Delta, New York to Baghdad, and then they go on a convoy to the military base. They don't fly on their base. Like, all right, here we go. Okay, whatever.
Well, Lorne seems to think differently.
I guess, yeah. Who am I to say? He was in the military. I just see them at the airport,
That's right. Where were we? Here we are. Oh, yes. So Lorne felt his stomach suddenly turn very warm when he felt the plane begin to descend. In just moments, he would be landing in the country that would change his life forever. He felt the jolt of the plane as the tyres touched to the ground. And also, at this point, how does he know that this is going to change his life forever? He is not gone there yet. How does he know that this is...
Like the Oracle of Delphi. He knows. He just knows.
yet he's
He's got
so
a good feeling about this baby.
yeah. But I mean, I take that to say like talking about because in this book the war changes him and turns him into the killer that he has become. At this point, the character doesn't know that because surely if he was like he got some premonition that I'm going to go over here, I'm going to be changed forever, end up murdering a whole bunch of people, and
Well,
ultimately like you would go, I'm fucking going home. Like fuck this shit.
oh shit! I had a really poor vision. I think it's more like I'm fine with this because it's like you're going overseas or like he's young and he's going on a new adventure. He's leaving home for the first time. But this really should have came when he went to military camp or joined the army, not when he went to Iraq. Like I'm starting the new chapter of my life, baby, and here I am,
Yeah,
and I'm gonna.
no, that's fair.
Uh,
That's fair. And I could be taking him too literally as well. Smokey the cat would like you to say the word both and milk.
with milk. You go for you,
There,
Smokey.
there you go. Just for you, Smokey. Um, I've lost my place now. Oh, here we are.
He
He
hadn't
felt
planned on it raining.
Oh, no, I don't think we got there. He felt the jolt of the plane as the tires touched the ground. His limbs went numb, and his stomach felt as if the food would come up at any time. He swallowed hard and beat the rising gorge back down into his stomach as the plane began to slow to a crawl. As he pulled the release handle on his seatbelt, he repositioned himself to stretch and prepared to disembark from the plane. He had expected to hear a lot of noise and see explosions in the distance when he got his first glimpse of Iraq, but was happy to find it quiet in the dark early morning hours. He hadn't planned on it raining like it was, but he would be outside only long enough to go from the plane to the hangar anyway. Okay. The unit had.
Okay, so he was surprised that. So I think he thought, like in movies, when they like fly over they're in the plane and they fly over like the battleground or whatever, and
Yep.
there's bombs dropping and people have to jump out with parachutes. I think that's what Aaron thought was going to happen. But it was just like he landed at a base somewhere. They did not prepare him at all. This seems like bad military tactics.
It really does. And g'day, Cyber Squeak and also Donde Lieta. And I am copying some stick in the chat from Smokey the Cat and a few others, Turtlehead 2, for spoiling the story because they were wanting to enjoy this masterpiece. In my defense, Lorne spoiled the story in the in the summary at the start where he basically told you the whole plot. So I do apologize.
In my defense, this story sucks and it should be spoiled for you. So I'm standing by my guns.
So kind of sorry, not sorry there, guys. The unit had all entered the hangar and sat on the floor as directed by Sergeant Buchanan after removing their backpacks. Lorne felt the concrete floor getting more and more uncomfortable after sitting through 2 hours of what the next 3 days' agenda would be. After the 2-hour lecture, the unit gathered up their backpacks and made their way to their bunks. Lorne located his bunk and began unpacking his gear. He had his gear all spread out over the bottom bunk when he felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned around to find his friend, Sergeant Paul Pabler, there with a smile on his face and his index finger pointing to the top bunk, indicating to Lorne that the bottom bunk was his.
Again, SS Sergeant.
Is he like,
This
yeah,
must I the
like is
plane
this,
traveled through like a time portal to Nazi Germany, and he's like, "All right, I'm in the Nazi army here. I guess I'm part of the SS."
yeah.
I don't
Now,
know.
if there's anyone that, knows more about the army than I do, is that like short for staff sergeant or something? Like, is that a thing? Like, I'm literally just saying words I've heard before. Like, I don't know if that's a thing. Like, is a staff sergeant or senior sergeant anything like that, or is this just Lorne being a fucking idiot? I'd love to know. At this stage, I'm leaning on Lorne being a fucking idiot because that's always a safe place
Take that.
to sit with Lorne. But it'd be good to know. And also, he Paul like Silent Rick? Can he also is he not a talker? He just points to things that he wants.
Well, let's see. I think that there's some dialogue. There's some real,
Well, there
Quentin
is
Tarantino-esque
actually
dialogue coming up.
probably some of the few bits of dialogue in there, and also he had they said he had spread his shit all on the bottom bunk, but then it looks like they're arguing about the top bunk. Well, if Lorne wanted the top bunk, why the fuck is he spreading his shit on the bottom? Is that what he? I just go, well, this is where I'll store my stuff, and up here is where I'll sleep. Anyway,
Sounds like Lorne.
yeah, sounds like Lorne. Oh, no way, Lorne said with a smile spreading across his face. Oh, yes way, Paul replied, grinning back at him. Rank has its privileges, you know, he said as he smiled and patted Lorne on the back. Now, hang the fuck on. Weren't they in basic training together? How would Paul be outranking Lorne? Like,
And you know what? It also doesn't follow through with Lorne being the super soldier that we know him to be.
yeah,
I mean, later
well,
on,
that's
he's
true.
going to be winning the war. He's upset when he comes home because he wasn't able to end the war, a completely reasonable expectation for any soldier to have. So I would think he'd be like at the top guy, but apparently Pablo here is like,
Yeah,
he's up there.
I'm guessing he just, he impressed so much at basic training, he didn't follow the usual way that everyone else does, where you work your way up through the ranks. They're just like, you are a fucking super soldier. You go straight to sergeant or whatever the fucking thing is. Like, what the fuck? Or was Paul Pablo like a sergeant at the training, and like, Lorne is just so likable that this kind of superior officer just is, I don't know, fuck it.
I guess it would be thing 2 that he was already there. That would be my guess. But
Yeah,
let's find. Maybe the story will flesh it out for us, Cornwell.
maybe it will. Well, I guess I can be thankful for a good bunk mate anyway, said Lorne. Once he gathered up his things from the bottom bunk and placed them on the top bunk, he realised he wasn't at all upset about sharing the bunk with Paul. What the fuck? If Paul is on the top bunk, why is he putting his shit on the top bunk? Like, is Paul
This
just
is
gonna
like the
sleep
stupidest
around
word
his
puzzle
cunt?
in the world.
The fuck is going on here?
Lorne gets both bunks, one for sleeping, one for storage. Okay. Super soldier, Cornville. Super soldier.
And Paul will just kind of work his way around all Lorne's shit up there. In fact, he was quite happy about it. He just couldn't believe that out of all the guys in the unit he could have gotten forced to share a bunk with, he was lucky enough to get one of his good friends. Over the next 3 days, Lorne and Paul spent their time getting to know the base and the areas that surrounded it. They distributed ammunition throughout the base and took the necessary classes they needed for out in the field. What classes are they, Lorne? The 4th day, Lorne and Paul and a couple of other guys they worked with drove a Humvee into the city to get to know the area there. Lorne drove especially...
Just for fun. Just they took it out for the day. They were like, can we borrow this Humvee?
just cruising around Baghdad. Sure. Like, just seeing the sights.
Apparently, the people in charge are like, yeah, here's the keys. Go take it for a spin. You earned it.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
The Iraqi forces are sitting up there, probably got them locked in with their sniper. Like, hey, guys, they're just sightseeing, all right? Let them go. Let them see the sights.
I imagine they're like in tank tops and like board shorts, listening to like Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah, it's
having a good time.
It's not a designated fighting day, guys. Okay, just let them go through. Oh my god! But yeah, exactly. Like, girls just want to have fun. Like,
yeah, they go.
Pumping out as they go along. Oh Jesus! They were pointing out places that have been bombed and gunfights had taken place between the American soldiers and the insurgents. They noticed that this particular area of the city was almost deserted because of all the damage that had been done to the buildings. There were people still there, but not many that hung about in the streets. Right. Lorne quickly slammed on the brakes, spelt incorrectly, when a man ran out in front of the Humvee and stood there blocking its path. He couldn't figure out why the man would want to run out in front of a moving vehicle. Why has he done this?
What mystery is this?
Especially one as large as a Humvee. Lorne sat there and looked at the man for what felt like 20 minutes, but in reality was nothing but mere seconds. The man had short black hair with a long beard, an athletic build, and was about 5 feet 9 inches tall, wearing torn brown pants and a white long sleeved shirt. Lorne looked over at Paul, then they suddenly realised that this guy was a suicide bomber. All four men in the Humvee ducked down just in time as the man in the road blew himself to pieces. After the explosion, all four men sat up and looked at each other with a sigh of relief that they were all still alive. So, they've sent out a suicide bomber to take out one Humvee with what, 4 or 5 guys in it. Like that, you
I'm
know.
no, I'm no terrorist, but I would think you would go to like a heavy
Yeah,
populated area, like a grocery store, or. But no, he walks up. You know what? He almost gets hit by the Humvee, so it's almost over before it starts.
yeah,
And then luckily they stop. He tries to blow them up, and
absolutely.
no one dies.
Yeah. So basically, they have wasted like a person, and however much explosives to take out 4 soldiers that have that fucking incompetent that they would probably take themselves out just cruising the mean streets of Baghdad, and also risk the fact, like you say, he could have been hit by this fucking car and the whole effort wasted. I can't believe that just happened, Lorne said. I can't believe it either, Lorne. Like, literally, I do not believe it.
Yeah. Like I
we,
must be sleeping. This would be great if it all of a sudden turned out he like fell asleep on the plane or something.
it
That'd
would
be
be.
great.
It would be. Like, this whole story would actually, like, I mean, I hate, like, when you have movies or books and that where all this, crazy shit happens and then, they woke up and it was all a dream. Like Melrose Place or whatever it was that ended like that. Was that Melrose Place? Was it? But
I think
anyway, there
so.
was
That
some
sounds
big
correct.
series that, like, basically someone woke up and they're like, I just had the craziest dream. Like, I hate that shit. But in this case, I would love it. It would make this whole thing 10 times better if at the last thing of the last thing of this book is, Lorne woke up, Lorne took his head off the pillow and,
Himself.
and, and found that he was, on the bottom bunk looking up at Paul. Like, none of this fucking happened. Like, okay. Like, that is better. Anyway, we better call in the base and let them know what happened, Paul stated. We'll have to cordon off the area until the police get the mess cleaned up. They called into the base to inform them of the suicide bomber and that it had killed no one else but the bomber himself. Then they got out of the Humvee to rope off the area. When Lorne stepped out, he grew pale at the sight of the human flesh that had been stuck to the vehicle and the building walls around him. As he took his first step after closing the door to the Humvee, he felt an odd feeling under his left boot that felt like he had stepped on a thin carpet. He lifted his foot to find a piece of human scalp stuck to the bottom of his boot. That did it for him. Oh, God! He exclaimed as he pulled the scalp from his boot, turned and lost his breakfast in the middle of the street. Paul ran to his side. Oh, that's so cute. And
They'll have such an interesting dynamic
yeah,
here. They're waking each other up. Oh, Lauren, are you okay? You just threw up. Let's get you some toast and some water. Well,
yeah.
sit down. The other two people come over here. You clean this up.
That's right.
Lauren needs a break.
You just relax, Lorne. And Paul, ran
I'll
over
say.
to hold back his horseshoe head calf from his spew.
Right. Look at the back. This beach vacation day in Iraq really took a turn for the worse, huh?
It really did. He just wanted to get to the beach. Doesn't even want this cookie. G'day, Vexy and Rachel D. So, are you alright, Lorne? Yeah, he answered. There's just some things that even the army can't prepare a person for, I guess. That was one thing that none of us was prepared. Oh, fuck off, Lorne. He's taking the piss now. That was one thing that none of us
That
was
one's actually a
prepared
line
for.
of dialogue.
Yeah.
Line of dialogue. So okay, Aaron's a moron too. Sure. But the ones that aren't lines of dialogue, I have a special anger with.
And 3 people apparently edited this. That was one thing that none of us was prepared for, Paul answered. Let's get this area roped off before anyone else steps into this mess. Fucking hell. The next couple of nights, Lorne found it hard to sleep and hard to concentrate on his work during the day. He and Paul had both stayed up, talking about the incident of the suicide bomber on the third night. It seemed to help them both face what had. Hang on a second. The incident of the suicide bomber on the third night. He's written that completely wrong. Because he's saying the third night. That makes it sound like the incident with the suicide bomber happened on the third night, not that they were talking about it on their third night. So he
Talk
and
about
Paul.
it that night.
Yeah, it should be,
Hey, remember when that guy blew himself up 2 days ago? No, no, I don't remember that. Why haven't we talked about that? That was 2 days ago.
Yeah, like that. That's
I
right.
have
It's just
questions.
come up. It's just come up then. But it should be he and Paul both stayed up on the third night talking about the incident with the suicide bomber. It seemed to help them both face what had happened, and they both were able to sleep better. From that time on, whenever they found something that was bothering them enough so they couldn't sleep or couldn't concentrate on their work, they would talk to each other so they could get it out of their system and not have to keep it bottled up inside. Over the next month, Lorne and Paul attended many training classes on how to react to IEDs, improvised explosive device, how to close off specific areas after bombings and raids, how to raid houses, and how to train Iraqi police. These guys
This
are
would have been a really
amazing.
good thing, a really good idea to, train them before they needed these skills. I guess in the military, they're like, well, we'll just send people completely unprepared over there, and then as things happen, then we'll teach them how to deal with those situations.
Yeah,
Great
exactly.
idea.
So this suicide bombing happened, and they've gone, guys, we're going to have to take them through on how to handle this. Oh, I didn't foresee a suicide bombing happen over here. He kept busy, so there wasn't much time for a lot of recreation. In his off time, Lorne would either get on get on the computer and talk to his mother, or call her on the phone. If he and Sergeant Pabler had time, they would get in a game of basketball or play a couple of video games. During the first month, there was a couple of rounds of mortar that hit the base that Lorne and Paul had to help clean up. He was never bored, but always wished he could be in a little more of the action.
Flip there.
I, I just, what was the point of all that? Like, what was the point?
It's his mom, remember? Did you forget about his mom? It
It's the
was central to
fucking
the
mom,
first two
Debbie.
chapters.
Getting on the computer and talking to Kayla.
Basketball.
That's right. Really, really drawing back to his time as the star on the basketball team. I bet you Paul Pablo was like, Lorne, you could have been a superstar. Do you think we'll ever see any more of the action than what we're seeing here, Paul? Lorne asked. Yes, I do, Paul replied. And from what I've been hearing, it's not going to be long before we do. So the word's getting around. Lorne gave Paul a stunned but enthusiastic look after his comment. What have you heard? He asked as he leaned in closer to make sure he didn't miss a word of what Paul was about to tell him. Can you imagine this scene happening on this basketball court? Well, from what's
Basketball court? I don't know where this is. Is this in?
Well, no, that's
It
true.
could be anywhere.
It could be, yeah. I'd assume basketball court because they talked about that earlier, but yeah. Well, actually, they haven't said, so that's an assumption of mine. Well, from what Sergeant Buchanan was telling me, the Marines are pushing a group of insurgents towards the outskirts of Mosul, and we have to help corner them. We'll be going right in the middle of the action to repair any vehicles that break down and are expected to fight if necessary. So we'll have to go in with our weapons ready to fire. Okay, like, wouldn't you always be going in with weapons ready to fire? And in amongst all of this action where they are cornering insurgents, like there would be bullets flying everywhere, they're going to be sitting in there repairing vehicles, but also firing if needed.
It's bullet resistant. He's got like that skin that like the Superman skin that just bounces off bullets. So he's the perfect mechanic to send in for this job.
Paul, cover me. I've got to go over to that working Humvee to get the transmission to put into this broken Humvee. When is this all supposed to happen? Lorne asked with anxiousness. Within the week, Paul replied with a slight grin, knowing how much Lorne was wanted to be in with the fighting. He wanted to be in with the fighting. Have they made up teams yet? Lorne asked, pushing to learn more of the situation. Yes, you and me
Basketball.
are on it. It's like the two like sergeants come out and like they're picking teams. Like, oh, I'll take Lorne.
Strong. Yeah, right. I want Armstrong. You know, whoever gets Armstrong wins.
Have they made up teams yet? Lorne asked, pushing to learn more of the situation. Yes, you and me are on a team with Private Baker and Private Gentry, Paul answered. Do Baker and Gentry know about this yet? No, I just found out about it this morning. I was supposed to wait until this evening to inform you all of it at the same time, so if anyone asks, you don't know anything about it yet. And that's their closeness. You know, he is the first to know because they're that close. Lorne looked at his friend and
Be
smirked.
interesting is if Lorne like accidentally revealed some information, and then his best friend and him, they had a falling out. He got like demoted, and then they never meet up, and then Paul died, and oh my god, I ruined our friendship.
Yes.
Like a plot, something to follow as the reader instead of
That's
just
right.
things happening.
That's right. Once again, that would be a great, and that adding to the weight of, seeing his friend die like that. That was, weighing heavily on him. They he lost his life and they never repaired their friendship and all this kind of stuff. But no such luck, everyone. Lorne looked at his friend and smirked. All right. The rest of the day, he did his best to keep his mind on his work, although it wasn't easy. That night, he lay in his bunk thinking about being in the middle of the action. It took him a couple of hours to get to sleep. Over the next few days, his excitement grew more and more as he waited anxiously for word that the Marines had pushed the insurgents to the point where the army was now needed to help corner them. Like they're rounding up fucking sheep. Paul could see Lorne's anxiety as he approached him. He'd been seeing it over the last few days. I know you've been... Oh my god, I'm sick of this fucking word. I know you've been anxious for word for us to go out into the action, Lorne. I just wish I could share your enthusiasm. Paul watched Lorne's shoulders fall because Lorne was hoping he was coming with word about the insurgents. Okay, and you are exactly right. He did use anxiety incorrectly before because he is fucking excited to be going out and fighting. So there was no, actual anxiety involved in this. Paul hesitated as he saw Lorne sigh, then watched a smile appear on Lorne's face when he blurted out, "We have to be packed and ready to leave in 1 hour. We're also changing our position too." It's like they're going to fucking Disneyland. Lorne gave Paul a dumbfounded look as he asked, "What do you mean changing our positions?" "We're not going in to work on vehicles. We're going in to fight," Paul exclaimed. "What made them change our position?" Lorne asked. "The insurgents kidnapped a taxi driver and are threatening to kill him if their demands are not met." Okay. And I don't want to sound, harsh or kind of, not giving a shit about human life, but I really don't think. I mean, I'm assuming they've kidnapped like an Iraqi taxi driver. I don't think that the army would change all their plans because like one taxi driver is being held hostage. I could be wrong. I've never served and that kind of thing. I just don't think that's how the army works. I don't think, whoa, hang on, guys. We're not going to go through with the mission we had planned because one innocent life is being held hostage. Could be completely wrong.
Even more than that, in regards to like Lorne, like nothing that's happening is his choice or a consequence of his actions. It's just like they changed their plans because something else happened, or we have to go in and fight now. It's somebody else's decision to make us go in and fight.
Yeah.
Nothing is. It's so very Lorne mindset. Everything's just happening, and he's the leaf in the wind.
Exactly. Leaf in the wind sums up Lorne pretty well. And g'day, dude. And feel free to unsubscribe when he's boyfriend/husband. Where did we get up to? Paul shifted gears in his voice and tried to hide his nervousness. Let's get this stuff ready. I still have to inform Baker and Gentry. G'day, medium syllables, and I am the Senate. Lorne began loading ammunition in the Humvee while Paul fetched Baker and Gentry. When they returned, the four of them had the vehicle loaded and ready to move out in 40 minutes. "Okay, men, who wants to drive?" Paul asked. "I call shotgun." Lorne stepped forward. "I'll drive. Okay, let's go then. They all piled into the vehicle.
Dialogue
Yeah,
section right there.
yeah. And
Okay,
really,
I'll drive. Who wants to drive? I'll drive. Okay, great. You're gonna drive. Let me put the key into the thing and start the car. Okay, do you have your car started? Okay, let's go drive. What the hell? Just get in the fucking car.
really important dialogue there. And g'day, Lethal Brownie. They all piled into the vehicle. Lorne in the driver's seat and Paul riding shotgun. Of course he was fucking riding shotgun so they can fucking hold hands while they go along. With Gentry and Baker in the back. We have to go to the police station first to let the Iraqi police know that we're here to help them. What? Paul explained. Lorne pulled into the parking lot of the police station and parked near the entrance door. He turned the engine off and noted the shabby look the building held. All four of the men got out and walked toward the building. Upon entering it, they had to stand still for a moment to let their eyes adjust to the dimly lit room. They found the translator standing next to the clerk's desk. The man held out his hand to greet the soldiers. So they're in the middle of all this action. They're going to drive over to the cop shop in Baghdad and go, guys, we're here to help. Hi, I'm Staff. Okay, so it is Staff Sergeant. So this S Sergeant is Staff Sergeant. Hi, I'm Staff Sergeant Pabla. I need to let the police know that we're here to help them. The translator was an American, Paul could tell. He felt relieved that it would be easy to communicate with police with the translator present. My name is Staff Sergeant Randolph. Hold on right here and I'll let the police chief know. So everyone's a staff sergeant. And once again, I don't have enough knowledge to probably even be critiquing Lorne's army knowledge. But wouldn't you start at private? Isn't that the lowest rank? So if they're just done basic
Come up
training,
in the story ever.
What's
So,
that?
it doesn't ever come up in the story. So what's the point in making him a staff sergeant? Just have them all start at the same rank.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
There's been no mention of why Paul would outrank him, even though everyone seems to be a staff sergeant. So I'm not sure exactly how Paul is outranking him. It's just mind blowing. And g'day, Sean McClure and All Might. Paul and Lorne stood watching the sergeant as he left the room and made his way down the narrow hall. Before he could return, they heard gunfire coming from nearby. Paul, Lorne, Baker, and Gentry rushed outside. Now also, why are Paul and Lorne always referred to as their first names, yet Baker and Gentry are referred to as their last names?
Because he couldn't be bothered to come up with their first names.
They're not important. They're not his love interest, so they don't need a first name. They reached the Humvee just in time to dodge a bullet that ricocheted. So he's written, they reached the Humvee just in time to dodge a bullet that ricocheted off the police station. They couldn't fire back until they found out which direction the shots were coming from. Then another bullet hit the police station, closer to the Humvee this time. Are they trying to hit the Humvee? Lorne asked himself. His question was answered as the next bullet twanged off the back of the Humvee. They're shooting from between those two buildings over there, Paul shouted as he pointed to the buildings across the street. Lorne, go behind that concrete barrier on the right side of the police station and shoot. Baker, you go to that concrete barrier on the left side of the police station and shoot. Me and Gentry will stay here and shoot from both sides of the Humvee, Paul ordered. Lorne and Baker both ran to their designated positions and began to fire back at the insurgents. Paul and Gentry began firing back also from the sides of the Humvee. The insurgents must have been overwhelmed by the firepower the four men held because the shooting ceased after only 5 minutes. Super soldiers, like he said. And g'day Julia and Gorilla Spawn and Jimmy. Once Paul felt it was all safe enough, they went back into the police station and were updated that the kidnapped taxi driver had been killed and they needed to find the man's body. After a few minutes deliberation, the four men headed back out to the Humvee and climbed in. They drove around the block to make sure the insurgents were gone. Then they cordoned off the area and began a search for the taxi driver's body. Lorne and Paul walked toward the two buildings to begin searching while Baker and Gentry began walking in the opposite direction to start searching. Keep your eyes sharp, Paul said to Lorne. You never know if or where an insurgent could be hiding.
For a second, recap everything that's happened so far in this chapter. A guy has blown himself. They landed in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
A guy blew himself up in front of Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
Played
Ruining their
basketball,
day out.
ruining their beach day. Rude, frankly. Aaron has played basketball and sent messages to his mother. And they've been in a firefight with a kidnapped Iraqi taxi driver. Really insane stuff. I am so fucking bored. This is the most boring thing in the history of the world. I could be reading the same word again and again and again, and more entertaining. Like my mind is like numbing over.
Yeah, exactly. It is, and it just none of it makes any sense. Like, are they mechanics? Are they soldiers? Like infantrymen on the fighting the front line? Are they policemen? Like, what the fuck are they? Like, you can't be all of these things.
They're just everything. They're training the Iraqi police, and they're moving munitions, and they're playing basketball. They were in the NBA prior to this, and they're driving around on beach vacations. I have no idea what the hell. What are we supposed to be getting out of this? Like, what's part of the story?
Exactly. It is fucking nuts. And g'day, Guru and Julia. Right. Lorne could feel his adrenaline picking up as he inched toward the back of the building where the insurgents had been shooting from. He inched his head around the corner to take a cautious look. I tell you what, when he gets a word he likes, he fucking nails it. Paul's notion that the insurgents had left was right on the money, Lorne found as he looked down at the body laying motionless on the ground behind the building. Lorne and Paul walked up to the man with caution, checking for any bombs that the insurgents may have left behind as a booby trap. To their relief, there was none. They looked down at the lifeless body of the taxi driver. Not an old man, Lorne said to Paul. Late 20s or early 30s maybe. Then Lorne looked down at the hands tied behind the man's back and his ankles tied crisscrossed. He moved his eyes back to the man's face that lay with one cheek flat against the dirt and saw the bullet hole between the man's eyes, just above his brows. The man had been killed execution style. A tear appeared from Lorne's eye and his face grew pale. He felt a great pain for the man that had been carelessly murdered. Not an old man. That was weird information.
And he was carelessly murdered.
Yeah.
So it's sad. If it was like strategic and purposeful, not as sad. Since he was careless, I guess someone like knocked him over and he fell into like some acid or something. Like, whoops.
That's right. Like carelessly murdered.
Didn't even mean.
And also, how can you be killed execution style? This sounds like you know, how can you be executed but also it carelessly happened? Like you say, like he tripped over and like one of the insurgents tripped over and their gun went off and it went straight through. He's like, you can't be both. Like, it's not careless if it's deliberate, which execution is deliberate. Anyway, Paul put his hand upon Lorne's shoulder. Let's call it in that we found the man's body so they can give him a proper burial as soon as possible. What the fuck? Lorne wiped a tear from his eye and then turned to Paul to radio Baker and Gentry that they had found the body and to meet them back at the police station. After letting the police know they located the body, Lorne, Paul, Baker and Gentry piled back into the Humvee and headed back to base. Paul and Lorne held quiet up front as Baker and Gentry drew a short chopped up conversation between the two of them on the ride back. What? They drew a short chopped up conversation between the two of them. That's weird. Both Paul and Lorne knew that they should probably... Both Paul and Lorne knew that they should probably spend a couple of hours talking to each other.
God.
Sorry. Both Paul and Lorne...
No, they didn't even mention it. They just knew. They just knew.
They just looked at each other knowingly. We're going to need to spend a couple of hours talking about our feelings, Lorne. Both Paul and Lorne knew they should probably spend a couple of hours talking to each other about their feelings and what they had seen and been through that day, but neither could find the words to begin talking about it, so they both just lay silently, staring into the dark. Hang on a second. We didn't hear them get back from
Together?
the last thing was they were in the Humvee driving back to the base. They're now lying staring into the dark. So we didn't hear them get back to the base or anything else that happened for the rest of that day for it to be nighttime.
Here's imagine. Here's okay, so they drop off Baker and Gentry at the base, and then they take the Humvee out. They find like a nice secluded area, and then they lay down on the front of the Humvee. You know, they're looking at the stars, the sun's going down, and they can't find the words. It's it's sort of like a lovers thing.
Yeah.
That's how I'm picturing it.
Well, they just because they couldn't find the words because of how traumatic it was, they just lie there holding each other until they fall asleep. It's essentially what I'm assuming.
Well, they don't need words.
No.
They're close enough. Words mean nothing anymore. They just need to hold each other in the dark on the hood of their Humvee.
It's their closeness. And g'day, Tranquillo. It was about 1 a.m. when Lorne had finally drifted off to sleep. He was having trouble all night as he tossed and turned and finally woke up around 4 a.m. in a cold sweat from the nightmare he had been having. He laid there deep in thought and motionless as a tear rolled down his cheek, just a single tear. It took another hour before he fell back to sleep. It was 8 a.m. when he finally woke up. He was late for work, but Paul had left a note on his... I fucking love this bit! But Paul had left a note on his bed explaining to him that he knew he had a hard time sleeping and that he didn't wake him up for work because he knew he needed the rest. They're at war in the fucking army, and he's allowed to sleep in because the little baby had a rough night. Like, get fucked. You tossed and turned all night.
A rough night. It was like a rough day, and
Yeah.
then everyone else did too. Gentry and did Baker and Gentry get to sleep in? Like they a suicide bomber blew up around them, so we're gonna give them a little while off. They can sleep in.
Like you can imagine, all the senior sergeants, whatever, going around saying, shh, guys, keep it down. Lorne and Paul and Gentry and Baker had a really rough day yesterday. They need to get to sleep, okay? So just do it quietly. Load that ammunition quieter. Come on, guys. We're all in this together. Like, fuck me.
Mara, we don't want to ruin that.
Yeah. You tossed and turned all night last night. Get showered and dressed and come into work when you wake up, the note read. Sleepyhead. Fucking hell. A couple of little kisses on the bottom. Lorne pushed the thoughts of the previous day's events out of his head the best he could and climbed off his bunk. He gathered up his things and moved to the shower to wash the night of sleep away and thoughtlessly slid into his uniform. He tossed his cap on his head and walked out the door and walked to the mess hall to get some assistance from a cup of coffee and a biscuit for some energy. The next week and a half was all repetition. Go to work, then bed. All the while, Lorne still had thoughts of the taxi driver. The images of his lifeless body laying there in front of him haunted Lorne every night in his dreams. He had called home and talked to his mum and let her know some of the events that had taken place to reassure her that he was all right. Even though he tried to disguise the tone in his voice so that his mum couldn't see how much he was bothered by the things he had seen, he still got the feeling that she could tell he had changed from the last time she had talked to him. Lorne hung up the phone, feeling better after talking to his mother. Somehow hearing her voice had restored a comforting feeling that was lost at the sight of the dead taxi driver. So, how did he know, how did he get what did his mum do to give him the feeling that she knew that he had changed from the last time they talked? Was it her inflection? Was it she, kind of asking him repeatedly, "Are you sure you're all right, Lorne?" How did he know that? He just got the feeling. 3 weeks
Say
ago.
it to him to reassure him.
Yeah, that's right. It's everyone. Everyone is responsible for Lorne. 3 weeks had gone by since the shootout with the insurgents at the police station. Paul walked over to Lorne with a look on his face that told Lorne something was up. "Where do we have to go, Lorne?" asked Paul. Where do we have to go? Lorne asked Paul before Paul even got a word out. "We have to go to the Iraqi police station again," Paul replied. "What's going on this time?" "Nothing. We're going to be training them. Paul looked at Lorne and noted the sigh of relief and also a hint of regret on his face. So why is he regretful? Like, what is he regretful about? So he's relieved. I'm guessing he's
Right.
relieved because they're not going to have to go and fight, even though all of this story so far has been about how disappointed he was that they weren't fighting. Then what's the regret about then?
So all that's happened so far is like Lorne and Paul get trained. Then they go to the Iraqi police station to train the Iraqi police. Cut out the fucking middleman. Just have who's ever training them train the Iraqi police people.
Yeah,
Why are they there? Why are they here? I don't understand.
And what are they training the police in? Like are
In
they?
case an suicide bomber hops in front of your Humvee, here's what you do. Okay, you grab your sword and you get behind it.
And cordoning off areas where people have been killed in war. I mean, the whole fucking place would be cordoned off. Like, and Asbury Brad says in the chat, "Are you sure Lorne didn't join the Salvation Army?" Just pretty good.
It's like summer camp. He's fucking selling at the cantina at summer camp.
Exactly. And g'day to Omega Heber and Gorilla Spawn. I can't remember if I said hello to you. Where we go. They left and gathered up Baker, Gentry, and Jerry Bowler, a worker from the refueling unit, because they needed an extra man, and left in the Humvee for the Iraqi police station. Okay, what do they need the extra man for? And Jerry Bowler, who the fuck is Jerry Bowler, except he's a worker from the refueling unit. So I'm assuming he's, like, is he a soldier? And what do they need?
Jerry Bowler, he's my favorite character. He's my favorite character in the story. Don't you badmouth him.
Someone should actually call himself Jerry Bowler. That would be a good name. And g'day Spencer Silvera. But so he's a worker from the refueling unit. So what is he going to teach these Iraqi police? Like, they need this extra person. We don't know exactly what. I assume is to train the Iraqi police. What is he going to train them how to refuel their vehicles? I think they probably know.
We've just been driving them till they ran out of gas. We can put more gas in them?
What?
Oh my god, these will last much longer now.
Thank you so much. G'day, Matt Ryan. As they approached the police station, Lorne looked at the building to his left, where he had found the taxi driver. Will I ever get that image out of my mind? He asked himself. He was able to move the thought from his head for most of the day, as they were training the Iraqi police. After 10 hours of training, Lorne was ready to go back to the base and lay his head on his pillow for a long night of rest. On the way back to base, the guys were laughing and discussing the day's events of training the Iraqi policemen. The ride was quiet and smooth, and Lorne slouched easily back against his seat while Paul drove along. He closed his eyes and took in the conversation and put his remarks in when he needed to. He could feel himself begin to fall asleep as he quickly sat up and rubbed his eyes back into focus and looked at the road ahead. Just as his eyes got focused, an explosion threw the Humvee sideways and Paul slammed on the brakes as he was now placed in the opposite lane. Is everyone all right? Paul asked. He looked at Lorne to his right, saw that he was fine, then turned around to check on Baker, Gentry, and Bowler. Of course he looked at Lorne first. Jerry had his hand over his ears and was slightly bent over in the seat. Jerry, are you all right? Paul asked. Jerry, he repeated. Jerry still didn't reply. Lorne turned around and grabbed Jerry's hands to pull them away from his ears. As he lifted
One page ago. And now he's dead. What the fuck?
As he lifted his left hand from Jerry's ear, he saw a small stream of blood roll down Jerry's earlobe from inside his ear. We need to get him to the hospital now, Lorne said to Paul. Paul took his foot off the brake and stepped heavily on the accelerator. I think we should all get checked out while we're there, he stated. So Jerry is basically fucking dead. But, the key conversation here, we should all get a bit of a checkup while we're there.
Yeah, I've had this hangnail for a few weeks. I need to get checked out while we're there, right, as well.
I've got this weird rash. I think it's good. I think it's good if they take some time to check that out. Lorne looked at the confused look on Jerry's face. He could tell that Jerry couldn't hear anything, but admired the way he remained calm. At the hospital, everyone.
Not a line.
What the fuck? At the hospital, everyone checked out all right except Jerry. The doctor informed Paul, Lorne, Baker, and Gentry that Jerry's eardrums had been blown out from the explosion, and he would have to remain at the hospital.
Alive, thank God.
Yep. Thank God Jerry's still with us. They all went to their bunks and prayed that night for Jerry to recover, and thanked God that nobody got killed in the explosion. G'day, Dan Jones and Ricardo Mercedes, and all the way absurd and humongous. And Dupuis, fashion consultant. The next few months went by quickly, and Lorne thought less and less about the incident with the taxi driver. Although it still remained in his mind, he was able to deal with it easier than he had when it first happened. He had a hard time when he had to say goodbye to Jerry. Although he still had his life, thank God, thank God, he would never be able to hear again because of the explosion that took his eardrums. Lorne spent most of his time with Paul, oh, shocker, even when they weren't working and training the Iraqi police. They grew very close, and Lorne was happy he had someone he could confide in when he was having a hard time. He couldn't imagine how much harder his time in Iraq would have been if he didn't have Paul there with him. Lorne would call his mother about once every 2 weeks, along with write her letters to let her know he was alright and to update her on everything that was going on. He let her know that even though he was proud of the things they were doing to help the Iraqi people, he had a hard time dealing with some of the things that he'd seen happen and had been through. Things aren't at all what I pictured in my head when I joined
I gotta stop you.
Yeah, mate.
A little suspicious of Jerry Bowler. So he shows up out of nowhere.
Yep.
And on that same day, they get attacked. A little suspicious. A little strange. It's been 3 weeks since the last attack. Jerry Bowler shows up, and all of a sudden, I'm keeping an eye on Bowler.
Yeah.
Hashtag eyes on Bowler.
Eyes on Bowler. I agree. He's pretty suspect. And, that would have been another nice plot line to go down about, an investigation as to how this incident occurred. And, was there any involvement from Jerry? And, you could have had a big twist. You could have had, Jerry was working with the Iraqis, against the American forces and, that kind of stuff. But spoiler alert, everyone, you're not going to get that. And g'day, Lorne.
Some good points.
Yeah. So that would be something to consider maybe for next time, Lorne. And g'day, Lorne's burn phone. And anyone else that came in? Dan Jones, I think, just came in. Okay, where were we? Oh, here we are. Things aren't at all what I pictured in my head when I joined up, Mum, he would say. Most of the time, his thoughts would drift back to the suicide bomber and the taxi driver. There had been much more since then, but for some uncertain reason, he would still think back to those two incidents. Maybe it was because they were the first things of this nature he'd ever witnessed in his innocent life. His mum let him know that she could tell he had changed just by talking to him on the phone. How can you tell just by talking to me on the phone, he asked. I'm your mother. It's my job to know these things, she replied. As much as he tried to hide his feelings, she still knew he was always amazed at the insight his mother had into his life. Paul would always tell Lorne, if it weren't for mothers, this world would be a hard place to live in.
And the chapter. So profound.
What a place to leave off. That really makes you think, guys. So chapter 4, and over to you, big guy. Actually, before we go on there, anything we want to recap from chapter 3 before we move on?
Under the sun happened. He went to Iraq. A number of people exploded. A taxi driver was taken hostage. Lorne won the military base basketball championship. There was a beach day. He's talking to somebody on the computer. I mean, big chapter, Cornville. That
big chapter.
He did work.
He did.
And somehow it feels like nothing happened. I don't know how that works, but it
is probably the most that happens in this book, but at the same time, nothing. And he did spend a lot of time on the pooter. And g'day to Lawns West Salad, Dana Velez, and also Daft Cracks. Alrighty, let's go on. Oh, g'day Dan's Jeans, by the way. Dan Jones. Hang on a second. Before we go on, Dan Jones wants us to read something again. I'm not actually sure what it was. Anyway, let's keep going.
Start chapter 4 / this is for you, name tag. All right, let's go with chapter 4. Lauren woke up to Paul shaking him. Get up, lazy bones. It's time to go to work. Slowly but surely, Lauren was able to get up enough energy to sit up in his bed. What time is it? He asked. It's 7 a.m. Time to start the day, Paul replied. Pretty sure army people start the day before 7 o'clock.
Fucking hell. Like, come on, lazy bones. These two are so cute.
Yeah. They're like the, we accept gay. I bet they're like, on college pamphlets, there's like, the racially diverse people on the cover of the pamphlet. These two are on the cover of every army pamphlet. Like, look, we're accepting of gays.
Yeah, okay. Exactly.
Gets off of him and crawled down from his bunk. Paul was already dressed in his uniform and was brushing his teeth. You got up kind of early, didn't you? Lauren asked his friend. Yep, we have to be at Iraqi police station at 8 this morning, so you need to step on it, Paul replied. Why do we have to be early? Because I have to check traffic today, and this is like two lovers waking up the morning after having sex. And it's expected to be a bit heavier this morning because of the new troops coming through. That would figure, Lauren said jokingly. Leave it to you to mess up my much-needed rest. Fuck you.
Oh
Fuck
my
you
god. Too. Your much-needed rest. You're in the fucking army, you asshole. And g'day, Lauren's mother, Gwen's twink toilet. Sorry for cheating on you, calling the freeway. Winnie's boyfriend/husband. You can't sell me out anymore when I admitted to it. Well, that's alright, and like Lorna's told us, as long as you admit to stuff once you're caught, all is forgiven. And g'day, Renegade Debate Life. Sorry, mate, keep going.
Paul pat Lauren on the back and replied, you know I wouldn't do it if I didn't care.
Oh my god.
Lauren smiled as he watched his friend walk away. Every single line that they have is like dripping with sexual energy.
It
you
is.
know I wouldn't do it if I didn't care.
Like, honestly, when are these two gonna fuck? Like, it's like you
Cornville.
But honestly, it's like whenever these guys talk, it's like you're sitting out like to dinner with like some friends and like someone. Actually, you know what it's fucking like? It's like Kourtney Kardashian and Travis Barker at the moment. Just fucking everything you see about them, they're always fucking making out and dry humping. Like, get a fucking room and spare us all, guys. Honestly, it's gross. It's gross.
Everyone else in this this area that they're on are like, geez, guys, come on. Like, whatever. You're fucking each other. I don't care. But
yeah.
Stop looking at asses all the time. Oh, I needed my much-needed rest. You know why he's tired? Because they were fucking last night and he didn't get any rest.
Stop fucking and get your head in the game, guys. You're at war. But yeah, it's like they'll be standing there with their hands down each other's pants while they're fucking, attention or whatever.
Weird.
Very weird.
This is not the place, guys. Okay. The morning had gone by rather quickly, and Lauren and Paul sat on a concrete barrier and ate their lunch. Sometimes 30 minutes for lunch just doesn't seem long enough, Lauren said. Yeah, I know what you mean, Paul replied. Especially when I have to stand in the middle of the street all day directing traffic. It kind of makes me feel a little tender.
He's feel a little tender.
The fuck? It makes me feel a little tender. I don't know what to do with that line. Well, at least your feet will match your head, Lauren cajoled. I can't let you be the only one with a tender brain. I'm sorry.
Tender brain. What the fuck? I've never heard that before.
Feet are kind of tender.
Oh my god.
Ron Paul. Okay, after they finished eating, that he wants Lauren to help him out with. After they finished eating, they returned to work. Lauren looked forward to the end of the day when him and Paul Go back to the base and give their feet a well-deserved rest.
Their feet are resting, their hands are fucking go. Jesus Christ! Like this is
Ridiculous.
like if you
This is so...
especially this chapter, like the whole thing has been like this, but this chapter especially, like if you pick this up, you didn't know who Lorne was, you didn't read the rest of it, this would be like a homoerotic novel. Like you would think you were reading, the lead up to some really intense sex. But it's not.
It's so
It's not
blatant
apparently.
too. I'm not. This is actually what they're saying to each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and g'day, Lorne to be wild.
Out of the police station and walked to the Humvee and stood waiting for Paul to join him for their afternoon break. These fucking two do everything together. Paul saw Lorne and signaled to him that he would be right with him. Lorne waved back to him and turned to open the door to the Humvee when he heard a gunshot. He quickly turned around and looked at his friend.
Just before we get, because this is obviously one of the high points of the thing, just like they always together, and I can imagine, Lorne would be like if Paul was fucking talking to someone else. He's like, when are you going to get that fucking other staff sergeant out of our life, Paul? You get him in here and you tell him. Fucking Paula.
That is good. Paula! Oh my god, his friend's name is Paul.
Yeah.
Oh my god, wow.
Interesting, isn't it?
Emotional scene. Are you Cornville? Do you have tissues standing by?
I am ready. I did get my tissues before this because I did read ahead and knew what we were coming to. So everyone else, if you want to spend 5 seconds getting some tissues, this is about to be a real tearjerker. So don't say you weren't warned.
That we've built up so much, Paul. You know what he looks like? We don't, but I'm sure you've made up an idea in your mind. So here he is.
I know
we're all
attached. We're all very attached to Paul right now because we know that character so well.
Paul stood there with his hand above his heart and to the left. He looked up at Lorne, stumbled 2 steps toward him in the road, and then collapsed. Paul! Lorne shouted. Lorne paid to the 2 gunshots that were fired at him as he ran towards his injured friend.
Sorry, can I interrupt you again?
Paul, go ahead.
Would that not have been the perfect place to end a chapter? Like, you've just heard gunshots, and Lorne has just screamed out, Paul! Like, isn't that the place to end? Because you're like, is Paul alive? Is he dead? What's happened to Paul? But that's just the middle, not even the middle of a chapter. Just, first couple of pages of a chapter. My bad.
This in any sort of way. I think the first 4 chapters are like 28 pages, and then chapter 5 is like 24 pages in and of itself. So this is just awfully structured. But Paul was just shot. In case anybody forgot, he was just shot. Okay.
Oh,
Lorne
paid
no heed to the
before
gunshots.
You go on, just some people in the chat are saying that every time you start speaking, we lose the first couple of words. I don't know why that is. Well, might be because I'm kind of talking, so I'll try to give more space between when you start talking. And also, guys, because we cut into this heaps, like if anyone actually wants to just hear this in its entirety, like I'm sure Eel and I would be happy to just read it without and upload that without our constant interruptions. And g'day, Tube Crawler. Anyway, back to you.
Hey, Lorne paid no heed to the 2 gunshots that were fired at him as he ran toward his injured friend. When he reached Paul, he bent over and helped his friend to his feet and helped him get behind a car that had been abandoned in the middle of the street after hearing the gunfire. He helped Paul prop his back against the car as he sat him on the ground, then lifted his M16 rifle from his shoulder and took aim in the direction the shots had come from. I can't tell exactly where it came from. Came from, Lorne told Paul as he looked around frantically. I'm going to shoot just above the building to scare the sniper. I'm the sniper, and if he's a male, he'll move away. He'll shoot again, and I'll spot him. Hurry up then and shoot, Paul commanded. Lauren took aim at the building he suspected the shots were fired from. He waited a couple seconds that felt to Paul hours. There was no return fire. The sniper had disappeared. The sniper is just a plot convenience. He
Yeah.
existed for one moment to shoot Paul and has just vanished like a ghost. All right, Lauren turned his attention to his friend. Lauren? Paul stuttered. Yeah, Paul, I'm here. He lied. I'm not feeling so well right now.
Oh my
It's because you just
God.
got shot, asshole. No. Ambulance is on the way. You're gonna be fine. Lauren gave all the encouraging words he could to give. Lauren gave all the encouraging words he could give to his friend. Fucking hell. To make him feel assured, but he knew himself that Paul was hurt bad. The ambulance arrived and moved Paul into the back and began sticking him.
Sticking him. He fucking loves sticking stuff.
Right. Sticking him with IV needles.
The ambulance officer came over and said, I'm gonna stick this IV in you.
Was he sticking it in you, Paul? On the way to the base hospital. They did everything they could do to keep him stabilized until they got him set up properly at the hospital. Lauren sat in the waiting room with his hands folded in prayer and tears falling from his eyes, unsure of what he would do if his lover that had been there for him through the hardest times were to die.
On friend for lover.
Right. He raised his head after ending his prayer with amen. You don't need to know what the context of that prayer was. It's just he's religious.
Yeah.
That's the only important part.
That's making him a good guy. Like this is more, even in his fucking book, he's virtue singling.
Friend to die, he's religious, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
All he could do was wait. He paced back and forth in the waiting room. Minutes seemed like hours, and hours seemed like days as Lauren awaited word about Paul's condition. 7:45 p.m. The doctor came into the waiting room. He gave Lauren an apologetic look, and Lauren knew that his friend had perished. We did everything we could do. We thought for a while he might pull through, but there was just too much loss of blood from his main artery, the doctor explained.
His main artery. It's a very, very medical term that. Which artery is it? It's his main one.
He knew him for Lauren. He's like, this guy, I probably shouldn't get the specifics here. He's not going to know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's right.
Lauren turned and walked out of the hospital in silence. He spent that night in Paul's bed and let the rain of tears put him to sleep. He was awakened by Baker letting him know that Staff Sergeant Buchanan had called him over the intercom to come to his office. After forcing himself to get up from the bed, he looked down at Paul's bed and remembered he had fallen asleep there last night because of the loss of his friend. What? And blocked his mind from going any further in memory to prevent breaking down in tears again. What? Is that? Can you? I don't understand that. Did I read that wrong?
Again. Read that again.
Okay. After forcing himself to get up from the bed, he looked down at Paul's bed and remembered he had fallen asleep there last night because of the loss of his friend, and blocked his mind from going any further in memory to prevent breaking down in tears again.
Okay. So firstly, he said he looked down at Paul's bed. Paul had the top bunk, so he would be looking up at the top bunk. But I think what this fucking half-wit is trying to say is so he's forced himself to get up from the bed. He looked down at Paul's bed and remembered he had fallen asleep there last night. So he's saying that he fell asleep in Paul's bed last night. The top bunk that he's currently looking down at, he's remembering that he fell asleep there last night. Obviously, so he could be surrounded in Paul's scent. Because that's what.
So this is a day later?
Yes, I think so. It's not,
Okay.
Despite the obsession with clocks, time is not relative in this book.
Right. He has to be looking at a clock, otherwise time is irrelevant. He hasn't looked at a clock in days.
That's right. So we're just in anywhere. And g'day C&J Devon Turd Ferguson.
Okay, the loss of time had taken its toll on Lauren. had done all he could. There's so many superfluous words in here that make it just like a clusterfuck to read. He had done all he could do at the time to get Paul to the hospital at the time.
Yes.
But he still couldn't help but beat himself up with what if questions.
Yeah, and
what if I had...
Yeah, go.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, that's, as you say, like, it is so hard to read because of all the superfluous words and the bad grammar and all that kind of stuff. Part of the reason why I wanted to have the text up there so people could read, so people would realize it's not us. Like, we are not awful readers. It is a real struggle.
Well, I'm pretty sure, like, half of the sentences contain the same object of the sentence. Or I'm not, like, a grammar expert, but, like, this last sentence, he had done all he could do at the time to get Paul to the hospital at the time.
Yes.
At the time is twice. It's
yes.
And then there was another one earlier that was like, he just doubled down on the same exact phrase. And he'll end sentences with like, him and his mother talked about how he was feeling. And then the next sentence will be, how are you feeling, son? By his mother. It's like,
how were you feeling when you're thinking about what I was feeling?
Okay, here are the what if questions that Lord was beating himself up with. What if I would have just kept running once I had him on his feet after I helped him from being shot? What if I would have called in? That would have done nothing. You would have both died. You would have been out in the open, dumbass. What if I would have called in for an ambulance before running out to help him to save him?
Oh, what?
He would have died.
It would have made no fucking difference.
And
that's what he's gonna do. He just hears a shot and he's like, oh, better get on the ambulance, 911. I don't fucking know what the ambulance number is in Iraq, but
what if I would have been paying more attention at the time to the surroundings? Why wasn't I paying more attention to the surroundings? So he just proposed the question and then changed the wording slightly.
What if I was paying more attention? Why wasn't I paying more attention? It's like having this weird fucking dialogue with himself.
Okay, then this one's beautiful.
Oh, no.
Why wasn't we wearing our bulletproof gear? We would be alive right now if we had on our bulletproof gear. Excellent.
Why wasn't we wearing? And see, that's the thing. Like, if he did this ironically, like this is, if Lorne had the self-awareness to go, everyone thinks I'm a fucking half-wit, so I'm going to show them how much of a half-wit I am. This would be perfect. This would be, like you say, chef's kiss, absolutely immaculate. But that's not what's happening.
Unfortunately, he's trying his best, which makes it completely laughable.
Exactly, and g'day hardcore poetry.
After a moment, he realized that the questions he had were endless, and he just couldn't understand. Okay, great. He was confused. He was overwhelmed by the whole thing.
He was messed up at the time.
It was... Right, yeah. He wasn't in his right mind. He was overwhelmed by the whole thing and was mentally drained right now. He pulled his mind away from the incident the best he could and continued to get dressed. He moved himself to the latrine to shave and brush his teeth. Standing in front of the mirror, shaving his mind, got lost in thought again.
What? Shaving his mind?
There's no commas anywhere.
While standing in front,
what he means... What he means is, while standing in front of the mirror, shaving, his mind got lost in thought again.
And also before that,
he's reflection.
Before that, if you read what he's saying, literally, he shaved his teeth. To shave and brush his teeth.
Right. That's right. This guy's got odd hygiene habits. It's very strange. I wonder where the battery acid comes in this whole situation.
That's the aftershave. Just apply a bit of battery acid.
Oh, right. Genius, brilliant. Didn't snap out of it until he realized he had cut his cheek from the pressure he had put against the blade. Lorne knocked on Staff Sergeant Buchanan's office door. Enter, Staff Sergeant Buchanan yelled. Opening the door, he moved quietly and steadily to Buchanan's desk and stood in silence as he waited to be addressed by Staff Sergeant. Sergeant Buchanan, I'm going to assume. Lorne, Buchanan spoke. Please have a seat. Whoa. Shades of Chris Hansen here.
So, obviously,
Have a seat.
yeah. So obviously for Staff Sergeant Buchanan, who once again is another person on the exact same rank as everyone in this book, but has his own office.
Yeah.
So Staff Sergeant Buchanan has obviously called Lorne in because Lorne has gone there and waited to be addressed, and then he said, "Lorne, please have a seat." But you don't hear about that. You don't hear that, Staff Sergeant has called Lorne to his office. It's Lorne knocked. It makes it sound like Lorne has gone to see him. So what you'd be expecting in this is Lorne knocked on the door. He after Buchanan said enter, he would bring up what he was wanting to talk about. But that's clearly not what's happened here. But anyway,
It just comes off incredibly awkward.
yeah, he's just standing there until he's addressed.
What do you want, son? Well,
I used to talk to Paul about my feelings. Could we lie down together and talk about our feelings? Continue.
Next beach trip. Okay. All right.
Yeah, next
As
beach
he sat
trip.
down. As he sat down, he fought to keep himself from breaking down again because of all the thoughts racing through his mind. A creative writer would find a different word to use instead of down twice in the same sentence, but yeah, we are.
And how many times have we had the exact same word? The exact same word.
About every sentence.
Yeah.
Prolific. That's his style as a writer, using the same fucking words. His eyes were an ocean of tears ready to flood his cheeks, but somehow he kept them back. "I'm sorry about the loss of Staff Sergeant Pabla," Buchanan spoke again. "I know you and him were close. Like lovers, you might say." Okay, the loss is a great blow to the whole unit. "I have written his family and need to ask you if you could put together his personal items to be shipped back home." Staff Sergeant paused a moment. "I want you to take the next few days off so you can try to heal from the loss of your friend. I know how hard it is for you. I've been through the same thing, the same type of thing myself before."
So imagine if every person that, when someone there died, and everyone just had a day off, guys, insurgents, we've lost someone. We're all having a few days off, okay? So just we'll continue the fighting shortly.
Suicide bombers, please.
And g'day, Shids Koala.
Make so much more sense if it was like a summer camp and it was like a monster. Like, oh my god, one of the camp counselors was murdered.
Yeah.
Okay, Lorne, you're a camp counselor. You take a few days off.
Yeah, that's right. Lorne the camp counselor, what a fucking nightmare.
God, yeah, I did it. You know what? I spoke without thinking. "Yes, sir," was Lorne's only response as he lifted himself up off the chair and moved towards the door. "Lorne," Buchanan spoke before Lorne could get out the door. Lorne turned around to look at Staff Sergeant. "Yes, sir?" "Need someone to talk to, Lorne." "You're more than welcome to come to me," Buchanan stated to let Lorne know that he was there for him. "Thank you, sir." Lorne walked back to his dorm where he slowly began the painful task of putting together Paul's personal belongings to be shipped back home to his family. He kept the one picture that he had of him and Paul that was taken in front of the Humvee that they had always rode in. They kept the picture that they took at the beach. That would be really, he's shirtless. Yes. I think that'd be perfect for Lorne.
Just sitting on like the nightstand next to his bunk,
Right.
Framed.
He kisses it every morning.
Yeah.
When he had all of Paul's personal effects together, he brought them to Staff Sergeant Buchanan and returned back to his bunk, where he spent the rest of the day and night in bed, most of the time staring off into space while his mind wandered through the past. Lorne returned to work a few days later, still not back to himself. He returned to work anyway. As hard as he tried to let things return to normal for himself, he felt it was near impossible without Paul there next to him. I don't want to get back to myself without you there next to me.
Yep.
So there were times when Lorne had some close calls of being shot. Oh my god, is this where he is it? Is this the... Okay, sorry. My bad, everybody. There were times when Lorne had some close calls of being shot or blown up because his mind would drift back to when Paul got shot. Paul gets shot and falling on the ground before him. He began having a hard time focusing on his job, but no longer felt anything when he killed or had witnessed someone else be killed, including those from his own unit.
Oh,
That
we're starting to get a bit of foreshadowing to what's going to happen.
things don't really tie together, Lorne. This doesn't track with what you're setting up. The strain became too much as he was in the field one day and witnessed 3 children that were playing with a ball, basketball. They're just playing with a ball.
Yeah, playing
became insurgent targets. They're just playing ball, and were blown up only 30 feet from where he stood. Okay, so like really small ballistics, I guess, or killed them.
It's
close.
Really contained explosion.
This needs. It's his like him losing it needs to be a result of his actions. Like. Paul dying should have been the thing. He could have saved Paul, or he could have saved 3 children. He saved Paul, and Paul died anyway, and the 3 kids died, and then he snapped, or something. But it's just 3 kids died, and just lost it one day. Not applied to anything we've heard about before. He just lost it.
Yeah, just flick the switch.
Lorne stood paralyzed and had to be moved physically by 2 teammates. As they grabbed his arms to haul him to safety, Lorne began to resist and tried to run toward the departed children. But the 2 teammates overpowered him and forced him to safety. What's he gonna do?
They've been
blowed up.
There'd be nothing left of them. Like what is he going to do running over there? But it's just Lorne has to show what an amazing guy he is. Even in face of extreme danger, he's going to run over to those kids, you know. And once again, I don't want to hear you talking about kids, Lorne. I just
tone deafness of this story is unbelievable.
Yeah. Kayla! as he runs over to them.
Oh man.
And that is the end of chapter 4. So thoughts on that chapter?
So much, but so little. I mean, what more is there to say?
Well, like I say, I still can't believe that when the shot rang out and he screamed out Paul, that wasn't the end of a chapter. Like that actually would have been some kind of, heightened action and some kind of, something that would have make you turn the page. But he just then, and just how lovely everyone is in the army. It just sounds beautiful, you can come and talk to me anytime, It's really
like this is the vibe that his mental hospital should have. Hey, sleep in if you need to.
Yeah.
Come and talk to me if you're feeling stressed.
Yeah.
But it's
that's right. But this is in the middle of the the war effort over there. Just get some sleep, tenderhead. I know you're a tenderhead. It's just I know you had a rough night. It's really amazing. And like you say, I think the biggest thing that stands out for me in this is just all the missed opportunities. Like there's 3 or 4 times where you really could have taken great plot. You could have put great plot things in there around, to either flesh out this whole trauma that was done to him over there, to make a bit of a kind of interesting, like a bit of intrigue about how have we been having no attacks, and then all of a sudden, what's his name? What was the guy's name? Jerry Bowler.
Bowler? Yeah.
Yeah. Jerry Bowler all of a sudden gets some information about a mission we're doing, and we're attacked and all this kind of stuff, but it just all gone by the wayside. Yeah, so that was kind of my thoughts on it. There's an interesting comment in the chat I was just trying to read. I've lost it now. That's perfect. But yeah, and
I think it picks up here in the future, though. I think the army stuff is the worst part. That's the chapter 3. It's just fucking mind-numbingly boring.
Yep, yep. I mean, at least
Here's
4.
hoping when Brooke enters the story.
There was a bit of action in chapter 4. Yeah. So we'll probably wrap it. We'll probably wrap it up there and tackle. And I think I think 5 is a fair bit longer. So we'll probably just do 5 next week. But yeah, anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
I look forward to the sex scene. Is that at 5? It's coming up. Looking forward to that.
Yes, it's it'll definitely be a highlight. And thanks, Smokey the Cat. But yeah, mate, this is so much fun. Like I was looking forward to this, and it didn't disappoint. So thanks again for coming on and doing this with me. And thank all you guys for being here. Like always, it's everyone in the chat that makes all this stuff so much fun. So thank you for that. And yeah, so. Any last words from you before I wrap us up?
Good to go.
Good to go. All right. Don't forget to delete your archives, guys.